Okay, we're starting. I'm speaking with Kevin Oconnor on September 27th. So Kevin, I'm familiar with your work and I've looked at some of your videos, but could you give me a brief overview or perhaps the elevator pitch of your business?
I try to work with technical professionals who have been promoted to lead teams of other technical professionals, frequently their former peers. So the specific area that I do most of my work, 90% of my work in, is with physicians who are going to become physician leaders, CEOs of hospitals, chief medical officers, vice presidents of medical affairs, physicians who are working in pharmaceutical companies who have to also influence both the commercial colleagues as well as the outside MDs, PhDs, and PharmDs. So that's primarily what I do. I also teach 6 classes at Loyola University in Chicago. And then the rest of my work is sort of spread out among other things, sometimes nurses, schools for the blind, and some other assorted groups. But most of my work is working with physician executives, and that started because I wanted to work with technical professionals.
And so your ideal audience would be like physician associations?
My ideal audience is a group of physicians, either who work in the same system, 20 to 30 people, or 60 to 100 people who are coming from all over the country to maybe work based in an association kind of organization, right?
Okay.
Now, occasionally it's coaching a particular physician who's in trouble. So sometimes they hire me because somebody's misbehaved or they're on the line. Or to hire a new doctor is about $1 million plus. So they don't. On the one hand, one of my doctors said, I said, if you were a nurse, you would have been fired a long time ago. And he said, well, yeah, but I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
And he was saying it out of arrogance, but the financial part of it is it's very expensive to replace doctors. So they try to do all they can to help them see the light. And so sometimes I do individual coaching in that regard.
Okay, so speaking about some of the different offerings, if you think of a pie chart of your speaking business revenue, what % is consulting, what % keynotes, what % training and workshops?
Let's see. I would say training and workshops would probably be in the 50% range. Consulting would probably be maybe in the 30 to 40% range. Just depends on the year because it does fluctuate. I don't do too many keynotes. Most of my work is either in an all-day format or a multi-day format. The shortest I do on a typical basis is maybe 2 or 2.5 hours, but usually I'm doing full-day workshops.
Okay, so I'm just going to read this so we have consistency across interviews. We're trying to study best practice as defined as having a CSP and a full-time speaking business whose revenues over the last 3 out of the last 5 years equals or exceeds $100,000 per year in gross revenue. Does that describe your business?
It does.
Okay. Did revenue from your speaking business during any of the last 10 years exceed $250,000 gross?
Yes.
Okay. And about when did it first exceed $250,000? What year?
Probably. When was 9/11? Was that 2001?
Yeah. No. Oh gosh. Can you believe it? I thought it was 2011, but yes, 2001.
2001. So probably around 1999.
Okay. 1999. All right. So just kind of going back in time a little bit, when did you get your first paid or unpaid speech?
My first paid speech was in 1970. I was speaking to teachers. told that there'd be 25 people who'd show up for a workshop on how to manage classroom behavior. And the day before, they called me and said there was a change in your registration. 2,500 people are going to show up for your
That's great.
tomorrow. So you're going to be at the Erie Crown Theater. So my first talk was at McCormick Place in the Erie Crown Theater.
That's great. I usually get the same advice, only in reverse. Okay. Okay. And how did you get? I'm assuming that was paid, right? You said it was paid. And how did you get that first paid speech?
I was teaching 3rd and 4th grade, and I was doing some evaluations of teachers and for the Archdiocese of Chicago. And the superintendent said, would you mind giving a talk at our, I think they call it a teacher resource day. And it was all the teachers in the Archdiocese of Chicago that would come together and go to workshops. And it was down at McCormick Place. And so I assumed I would have 25 people in the room. It turned out to be.
So your current employer, so you did this for your current employer?
Well, my current employer was a school, and the school was under the umbrella of the Archdiocese of Chicago. And so the Archdiocese of Chicago was the client for that talk.
But we could say...
But I mean, yeah, it was part of the... It wasn't part of my work duties, but it was... they knew me from my teaching.
Okay, so it was an extension of your job.
Yes, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to be skipping around a little on this question. Let me just see here. So when did you get your second paid speech? So if your first paid speech was 1970, right?
Yes.
And when was your second one?
Well, that's when a number of them started, because the people that saw me at that conference said, could you come and talk to our parent group in the evening? So while I was teaching during the day, I taught 3rd and 4th grade. Then, Saint this and Saint that parish would say, can you come and give a talk to our parents about what you talked about to the teachers? So that's when I started to do, quote, quote, part-time professional speaking in that regard.
So about how long did it take from your first speech to get your second speech? Was it pretty immediate, or?
It was pretty quick, maybe within a few months, because I think they went back and said he was funny and we liked him and let's have him. And so I just was I didn't know about professional speaking at that time until that summer, when I needed a summer job because, as you know, teachers work 9 months. So I got a job with the Environmental Protection Agency in Chicago through my contact who had hired me for the Archdiocese. Her brother was the training director, and she said, he needs somebody to help him. Do you want to help him this summer? So I worked for the Environmental Protection Agency in Chicago as the assistant to the training director. And what he did was he hired professional speakers to come and talk to the primarily African-American administrative assistants at the Environmental Protection Agency, because at the EPA at that time, you were either a scientist or you were an admin. There was nothing in between. So we knew the admins were not ever going to become PhDs or MDs, but we knew that there was a better job for them somewhere else. So he would hire professional speakers to come in to inspire them to think about going back to school, that there's another job for you. You don't have to be in a bipolar kind of environment. And so that's when I was first introduced to people, and this was the beginnings, I think, of the NSA at that time. And this guy, I said, so these people make money giving talks? And he said, yeah. He said, that's all he does. The guy that he was hiring, Bill McGrain was the guy's name, from Cincinnati. And so then I met Bill, and then a few years later, when I was at St. Viator, I moved to a high school teaching, a counseling position. I hired Bill McGrain to come in and talk to our faculty, and then I got more and more familiar with the National Speakers Association. By that time, myself and Frank Bucaro, who's a member of NSA, formed a company, and we actively marketed ourselves to parent groups to give parent education, because he was teaching at a high